Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Pathway to Successful RPA Implementation. This is hosted by ITC Infotech and Automation Anywhere. I'm Moshimi from Automation Anywhere, your moderator for this session. I thank each one of you for taking time out to attend this webinar, and I'm really hoping that each one of you have some meaningful takeaway at the end of this 45 minutes that you will spend with us. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat window, and we'll take them at the end of the presentation. So with that, I now introduce you to today's speakers. First, we have Mayank Jain, Vice President, Business Consulting and Head of Automation Capability at ITC Infotech. And we have Sumit Pathak, Digital Workforce Evangelist for India, Middle East, Africa with Automation Anywhere. Mayank, it's over to you from here.
Thanks, Moshmi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Trust all of you, your families and colleagues in your organization are staying safe and doing well in these tiring times. Let me start with a story. About 2000 years ago in Greece, there was a lawyer by the name Protagoras. A young student, Euthylos, requested to apprentice under him, but he was unable to pay him the fees. So he struck a deal with his master to say, I will pay you once I win my first case in the court. The master agreed. Few years passed. The student passed out, but he never paid the fees. The teacher decided to sue the student in the court of law. The teacher thought to himself, if I win the case, as per law, student will have to pay me. And if I lose the case, again, the student has struck a deal to say when he wins the first case, he needs to pay me and therefore I will get paid. So fundamentally, I will get my money with this case. On the other hand, the student is thinking on different lines. His view is, if I win the case, since the case is about non-payment of the fees, I will not have to pay the fees. And if I lose the case, I won't have won the first case and therefore I don't need to pay the fees. This is called Protagoras Paradox. Whichever way you look at it, both of the parties or both of the arguments have equal and convincing agreement in their own right. RPA implementation is a bit like this. In most cases, there is no right or wrong answer. With this, let me open up for a quick poll. While the poll is on, let me emphasize, there is no right or wrong answer. Every organization has its own set of problems to solve, and hence looks at automation from their own perspective. I can see the results, quite interesting results. I think most of the organizations, at least most of the poll respondents, it's 50-50. So in fact, in broader spectrum of things, in most of the organizations, it is an initiative driven by both technology and businesses together. And if wherever there is a divide, it's an equal divide. So this is really as expected, you know. So the whole point here is it is an initiative which delivers value to both technology and the business teams, and I think that is extremely important. For the flow of the presentation today, I will really walk through some of the sort of golden rules of RPA, if you will, which really brings out, you know, some of the key aspects of doing a successful RPA implementation. For one of our European affluent, beverage clients, and I call them affluent because they have all the sufficient pool of resources to solve most of their technology problems. The way they took RPA is really in a very different context. So they actually looked at their IT services organization, which is already flooded with multiple tools and technologies, including Snow for infrastructure monitoring, your ServiceNow for end-to-end service management, and so forth. They created sort of a team of digital workers which would really monitor the infrastructure and start reporting. Fundamentally, this would help them in ensuring a zero-touch operation in their infrastructure monitoring and reporting space. So this is how their stimuli for automation was. If I were to present a little bit of a data and go from here to say, these are all good things, but what do really people do? So the Forrester did a bit of a research, last year for about 5,800 clients and really went on to understand what people are automating. Finance and accounts represent about 36% of the total use cases being automated. This is followed by the client service center or a contact center, your IT, your HR, and procurement. All these areas put together contribute to about 75% of the overall organization's automation sort of initiatives. So broadly speaking, this is the spectrum in which most of the organizations are playing at this point. While we talk about what to automate, it is extremely critical to understand it is not about automation as a technology or automation as a business initiative. It is actually going down to understanding really and solving the business problems, right? I can take an anecdotal example here. Offshore shared service organizations are driving growth for automation. Fundamentally, there are about 1,500 American and European organizations with an offshore service arm in India alone, with a prominent agenda of improving process efficiency and to reduce costs for the parent organization. Automation was the next obvious choice, and automation came in and started automating a lot of these processes. Now, it has driven to a fact that this is where organizations have started to see a value. Automation is not offshoring. Automation is here and now. Automation is something within your own hands. You can drive efficiency of the work that you're doing. You can drive effectiveness or experience that you're delivering to your organization through automation. And therefore, the way we see it is really coming down to and boiling down to really solving problems now. Identify a problem, understand what that problem really means to business, and find the right solution to for the problem really. One of our airline customers, say for example, wanted emails received for last minute cargo booking to be entered into the system to convert them into orders, or rather order ready template, right? One of our fashion retail customers wanted to convert a spec sheet. This is an American, fashion retailer. Convert your spec sheet, which is coming from the designers, directly to a bill of material, which is ready to be, created in line item, which is item info record creation and purchase order creation kind of a story. So they wanted that kind of a storyline to be created. One of our banking customers, say for example, wanted real-time testing done for more than 300 scenarios on mainframe for all of the new product designs that were being launched. They really wanted to reduce their time to market. If you ask me, as a practitioner, as a someone who's looking at the industry very closely, um, almost always, really, the use cases which have an impact on customer experience, they find precedence and they find higher value and higher mind share from most of the stakeholders in the organization. Let's accept it. The first step always brings an anxiety. Am I going to make the right choice? Am I moving in the right direction? How quickly can we see the results? There are going to be questions. It's just natural that the first set of process discoveries, bring in those kind of anxieties in people. Here is what we have seen and what has worked in many cases, right? Start with a rule of 5. Identify 5 processes that cross up to 5 applications, and typically agents perform a switch job, not much movement, not much business rule application, and look at those from the perspective of touching only 5 or fewer applications, and fewer human decisions. Now, the tasks which have higher transaction volume, which are speed sensitive, which are error prone, and which have fairly irregular labor demand. You have a labor demand over the weekend, or labor demand on some certain event, like the current epidemic that we are in. Those kind of use cases always, almost always deliver very high value, is what we've seen. One must, when you're looking at RPA, one must definitely look at a larger perspective. It is not just about a cost mitigation strategy or operational efficiency strategy. It is a key component of your broader digital transformation agenda. It is a large part of your digital transformation agenda. While you may have analytics, you may have your social and mobile as your strategies, automation is definitely up there. For one of our FMCG clients, say for example, after process mining and value modeling, what we kind of discovered was 10 set of use cases which were automation ready. Client came down and said, what, we want to automate only 6 of them. We don't want to go ahead with 10. Fine. After doing process discovery, we realized none of those 6 processes could go ahead, because the processes which were in the realm of a category manager, there was a different set of category manager for a slightly different product range. They were doing the process in an entirely, or rather significantly different way, right? The templates were not standardized. Now the organization took a step back to say, let us first do a PPR, let us standardize the process first, and then we will restart automation. All right. Let me put it this way. Going wrong the first time is not to be seen as failure. It really needs to be seen as learning, because this is something that many organizations have never done before. And when you take a new step, it is just natural that the changes give you anxiety, but the anxiety fades away as the adoption increases. One of our FMCG customers started their journey with a fail fast approach. They opted for a low scale automation product without touching their core ERP, which in their case was a SAP system. Once the adoption increased, the SAP business users also wanted to get into the bandwagon of automation. They started demanding automation, and that is when they realized that they need a product which has larger sort of scope of capability, and that is where we introduced automation anywhere for them. So now that customer adopted a 2-product strategy, and it was extremely important for that organization to move from a process mindset, because they were only looking at some of the quick wins, to a governance mindset where how do you do a managed services model? How do you create that operating model to deliver a large set of automation needs which are coming in through the organization? How do you really democratize automation in some sense. And as we speak now, we are at a stage where that organization actually is moving one step further, because now the process is in place, a shared services or other automation as a service model is already in place. Now what they're going ahead with is they're looking at assisted automation, which is they're looking at desktop automation. They're looking at automation first mindset. People want to see if whatever systems that they have, whatever processes they're doing, can it be automated? And that is where the maturity of the organization is improving. It is about creating a citizen developer mindset now for the organization. So right where a process anxiety to, to a culture of change, culture of digital transformation. So this is really a very, a succession as we go along, right? And one thing that I have almost always seen, it is about working together. It is about it is not really about looking at where we were or where we want to be. It is about finding it is about moving forward in that journey. And when we move forward in the journey, there will always be new challenges. There will always be new challenges. um, One of the very common challenges, say for example, that we have seen is around change management. After having successfully engaged with a SI partner, one of our clients, and a very fairly unsuccessful sort of adoption. I mean, the use case went on for almost 5 months, for business users to really accept it. There were change requests after change requests which kept coming in and so forth. They almost termed it as a failure, as an initiative. And when we kind of chipped in, when we started engaging with them, we kind of realized the first thing which had not happened by then was really engagement with the business user, to make business user sort of aware, what to expect, what are the things that will come in, what are the things that business user will be expected to do, and what are the things that they can leave and rely on a digital worker to perform for them. So I think that kind of a mindset change, because it is definitely going to bring in anxiety with the business user. And we brought in a change management approach to them to say, this is how it needs to be done. You have to first start with the communication. People need to understand really how and what changes are coming their way. It is not just about identifying use cases and automating. It is about enabling and preparing the organization to accept the change which is coming their way. And I think with that, it became a fairly successful, implementation going forward. So as I was saying, while all of this goes on, and we talk about multiple things, across sort of the user journey and across the maturity curve, one thing that we have realized, which stays almost always, which is the success lies in working together, right? Let me take a very interesting example here. This interesting example is of our own. We at ITC Infotech, we've decided that we will enable each one of our employee with a bot. We have a citizen developer charter that we are running, and we want all of our 9,000 employees to be enabled with a digital worker, which will work for them, which will work with them. And to do this, the very core of this is a kind of a transformation, again, that we as an organization haven't seen before. The first thing that we wanted to do is get external help. Again, this is we decided ourselves to go on to Automation Anywhere platform, and we got professionals from Automation Anywhere to really help us in this journey. And this has worked for us, because and we got them not as we got them as a developers, we got them as a professional services partner for us, because we wanted to make sure we are learning and we are not committing mistakes which others would have done. Of course, we have committed some other mistakes which no one has done before, but that apart, I think the important part was to make sure that we stay invested in the partnership and we start finding the solutions together. with this, I bring to an end to this presentation. I would request Moshmi to start with the next poll. And of course, not to mention question and answers, please keep sending your questions in the chat box. We'll be more than happy to answer the questions, or we'll reach out to you with the answers at a point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayank. So audience, if you're contemplating your automation objectives, your next steps, I'm sure through the examples that Mayank has shared, you've been able to have your takeaway. And with that, we now move to 2 poll questions. The first one is, what is your end goal from automation? So your options are direct cost reduction, restructuring human involvement, process excellence and streamlining, want to have it as a differentiator, not sure, need consultation. We'll give it 45 seconds. So please do take the poll and we'll let you know what the scores look like. So Sumit, which one do you think will score the highest here?
Well, for me, it is a different answer altogether. But if I had to choose from one of these ones, I think want to have it as a differentiator.
Right.
Let's see.
Let's see what it looks like. All right, so we have it. The highest scoring is process excellence and streamlining. 84% of you have opted for that.
Wow.
51% of the audience feel it's direct cost reduction. The third on list is 49% opting for restructuring human involvement, followed by 21% saying want to have it as a differentiator. So maybe pretty different here. And the
I
last
would say it's an exclusive category.
Sure. All right. So thank you for responding. We'll move to the next poll. So what are the major challenges you've seen from an RPA adoption perspective, which you see from an RPA adoption perspective? Your options are organizational acceptance, unstructured IT, non-streamlined processes, budget and fun, not our priority at this moment.
This time, let's direct this question to Mayank.
Yes, Mayank.
Let's
see how off you can be here.
Non-streamlined processes.
Top 2, Mayank, is multiple choice.
Non-streamlined processes, I think it is really a big challenge in my mind. And that is where a lot of value needs to be unlocked as well. I would put my money on this.
Yeah.
Right, so we have the results. Yeah, 69% have said non-streamlined processes. 43% say organizational acceptance, which would be again change management. 36% have said it's unstructured IT. 34 opted for budget and funds, and not our priority is almost last. All right, so thank you for your participation in the poll questions. We've had 3 today, and we'll now have a round of Q&A, which is inspired by the questions that we've received from you. And I'll pick the first one. So, so this is for Mayank, and I'll have the second part for Sumit out of this, which is for Mayank. What has been the driver for ITC Infotech to get on the RPA path, and what have been your learnings? And to this, Sumit, your question would be, if Automation Anywhere promises end-to-end RPA as its proposition, what really stands out about this end-to-end RPA aspect? So you can take it first, Sumit. I'm sorry, Mayank, and then followed by Sumit.
Hey, thanks, Mashmi. Very interesting question. Actually, if you go back to my last slide, I think I spoke about, we are eating our own dog food in some sense. I think I'll be very candid here, right? I think we started this journey, from the perspective that we realize a lot of our, young folks that we have, there is a lot of agility. There is, and we see the speed at which IT is moving, the speed at which business wants IT to move in that sense. I think traditional technologies do not deliver that kind of a speed, or at least the way we see it, the time to market, time to value for an automation initiative is very fast. Now, much of our population, the much of our sort of employees, they really wanted to also understand and learn and jump onto the bandwagon of new technologies, right? And while you can only have a size of analytics practice or size of DevOps and so on and so forth, there was an increasing sort of realization within us to say automation is one thing where we want everyone to think automation first. This is something that we want to bring to our customers, and this is something that we want to transform ourselves inside out. And this was really a motivator for us to really jump onto this bandwagon. Of course, we, as a SI partner, we looked at the products, we looked at and automation anywhere was right up there. We partnered with them, and we kind of moved, started Charter to this journey. And I would say, the way we see it, it was not important only from an employee productivity standpoint or employee experience standpoint. There were other aspects to it. We can definitely see, where the world is going. We are seeing that the world is moving towards, having lot more work than what people and what available skills can deliver. That fundamentally means the charter of the job for tomorrow is changing. It is going to be a digital worker-led organization or economy where a lot of the work would be done by digital workers, and humans will elevate themselves to do more cognitive work. So fundamentally, it may not happen in next 2 years, 3 years. It has already started to happen. It may happen in next 8 to 10 years time frame, but fundamentally it is going to come. It is going to come. And how do we keep our organization ready for that kind of a challenge is something that we wanted to address. So I think we have already created personas. We've already created digital workers for ourselves. We are onto that journey, and we are working with a lot of clients to really bring that kind of a realization in themselves. So I think this in a holistic manner for ourselves, for our clients, and for future readiness is what we looked at when we kind of adopted and embarked on this journey.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Sumit, your
yeah, Murphy, yeah, can you please help me to recollect the question?
Right. So if Automation Anywhere has a proposition in end-to-end RPA, what really stands out about this proposition?
Okay, so I will talk more from practitioner's view as well, right? So as you know that for our attendees as well, that I was a practitioner myself before joining Automation Anywhere, which is 8 months ago. What I have seen as on the practical basis is that it's when you're starting on your automation journey, and Mayank spoke about this, there's a big need of a strong partnership where at the start of any new journey, there's a hand holding which is required because you are facing so many unknowns, right? So the idea is not about just bringing in the product and providing the license and going away. It is about how do you stand with the organization right from the identification of the opportunity, from that going to change management, getting few bots into production, identifying the best practices, and going through the change management at a various different level, be at a technology level, be at infosec level. So it's a gamut of activity which is required to be done when you are starting your automation journey, right? And with Automation Anywhere, I have experienced when I was the customer of Automation Anywhere now, and now I'm this on the table. I see that's what we do with other customers as well, that we partner with them strongly and we take them right from the discovery to the deployment to the support and everything which comes in between. So it's about partnering and hand holding is what I see from end-to-end automation perspective. And one more thing, Moshe, which I would like to suggest is we always have this view that we do not want to force fit anything, and that's one thing which we need to understand. RPA need not be force fitted in something which it should not be at, right? So that as an expert, we will certainly advise that which are the processes where you need to automate, and I use the word automate and not only RPA, and which one you should not. So that way you're in the right direction. You know what processes will lead to providing benefits to the organization.
Right. So that really explains very well. I mean, Mayank from his side and you from, as a provider side of things, I really see the connect here. Thank you. So we'll move to the second question. Now, this is for both of you again. So how are both organizations helping customers in these challenging times? And we speak about COVID-19 now. What kind of challenges do you see your customers facing, and where are you playing a role there? So we can start with Mayank and then move to Sumit.
Thanks, Mashmi, for bringing this up. I think it is, I can imagine this is one of the very sort of fresh on the mind kind of a question in most of our customers, with most of our customers. I think the way we see it, right? I think at this point in time, the organizations really need to respond with agility, right? Now, I were to really look at, bucketing, the organizations in 2 or 3 buckets, right? First thing is, there are organizations where, because of lockdowns and because of, customers not moving out, there is a significant impact on those businesses or, on those organizations. And in those organizations, I think the challenges are fairly different than some of the essential services organizations where, getting the goods to the right customer at the right time has become a challenge. At the both end of the spectrum, if you were to see, the kind of work that we're doing, say, for example, making sure, that for a customer service agent, when someone calls in and says, I want to reschedule my flight, I want to kind of change my, hotel booking, cancel my room and so forth, where are you able to help that customer? Are you able to bring in value to that customer? And that is what we are doing. We've got a ready set of bots that we bring into customers. Of course, transactions like, order processing, transactions like, customer service, transactions like IT service management, transactions like, say, for example, turnaround time in case of, invoice processing, or in case of account receivable, account reconciliations, etc. I think those kind of things have taken a lot of precedence in our mind. Second thing, what I would say is, another thing that a lot of our customers are really looking for is from the perspective of, how can we help them, right? And this is where, as I said, the ready bot library that we have, plus, the accelerated sort of solutions that we bring in, and in a automation as a service kind of a model, plus, the catalog of processes, automatable processes, which we have created on the basis of our large experience, that we worked with the customers. I think all that sums up here to bring in a lot of value. And fundamentally, this is what clients are also looking at, how can you deliver something real quick, real now, because problem is today. We're not looking at a 6 months down the line. We are looking at now and here. And this is what we are really partnering with a lot of our clients. Sumit?
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, thank you, Mike. So I think very similar to that. See, we have put our hand up saying that we will help our customers both from the product and services perspective. We see this are testing times where the organizations are looking, for both ways in view to defend against the spread of the virus and to mitigate the long tail effect on their business, right? So it's a very delicate balance which they are trying to maintain. And as Automation Anywhere, as their partner, how we can reach out to them and help them. I'll give you an example, and again, to bring to the context of what Mayank said in terms of different categories, we've also categorized organizations into three different needs to category. The first one is need to be efficient, second one is need to survive, and third one is need to save. So as you know, pharma, healthcare, hospitals, government, and ministries, these are the ones who need to be efficient during this time, because there is flux of so much of work which has come through this huge spike. So, and also we know that there is a paucity of workforce as well. So in that situation, how do we help them out? For example, in one of the biotech research firm, we were able to build a bot for that particular organization, where we helped them to collate the data from different lab systems and provide a dashboard which helped them to save very critical hours in a week just on that administrative activity once the test has been done, right? And in today's time, that's very important that we are able to even save that much amount of time, because to stay ahead of the virus. With banks, for example, where we are trying to save, as we all know in India as well, that home loans have been asked to, there for 3 months, it has been delayed, the EMI, the monthly installments. Now, what does that mean for the bank to basically do that? We have to ensure that within the organization, in the bank, we have a treatment so that there's no reminders which goes through. The customer rating is not impacted. So there's a lot of changes which needs to be done in the back end. And one of our customers have 6 million home loan customers, right? And so they reached out to us and we were able to help them. So it's products and services. And when I talk about the product, we have got bot store, which we have put together, which we already have, but there are a lot of bots from COVID perspective available for the customers to go and to utilize it, so they can fast track the need. And within the organization itself, we have put a task force for COVID specifically, where we are making sure that any requirement comes our way, we are able to build the bot and it's out to deploy within a week's time. So yeah, we are working very, very close with our customers. We have to make sure that in this testing time, we are seen as a true partner to help them to get over this curve.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So we take the next question here, again, which is, referring to the current context. The question is, given the current context, how do you suggest organizations should prioritize their use cases? And it would be best if you could explain this through examples, both of you.
Right.
Mike, you want to go first? Or, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I can take a stab at it first. So I think it's a very relevant question, but I think it is a very contextual question as well, Mashmi, if you ask me, because as I said, I think it is in context of that organization. What are the challenges, that organization is facing? I think that really defines, how can they prioritize and what can they look at, in these times. And it is also from the perspective of looking at reducing, say, for example, the pain, if I were to really use a word, from unprecedented hiring and firing, or reduce pain from elongated multi-day work, or extremely high working hours, tiring circumstances and so forth. How do you provide that experience? I think so in these times, one has to really look at it from the perspective. So I would say really look at it from two perspectives. So first perspective is put it in context of, what I just said. How can you help people who are delivering highest value? How can you remove pain, from that ecosystem? And some of these, use cases which really come to mind is, say, for example, how can you enable people to, work remotely and collaborate remotely? Again, one of the very, very critical things which comes in, where people really want to work remotely and collaborate, but there aren't enough tools available. And how do even organizations onboard, say, for example, in a lockdown environment, how do you onboard people with, IT assets and functions and tools and make sure everything is delivered. So I think that those are the kind of things that we are seeing. Of course, coming back to the question that you said, what should customers look at? Again, the way we see it, customer service, again, go back to the basics. What touches a customer? Highest priority. What touches the employee? Second highest priority. So customer service becomes, again, one of the highest priority. And then your IT services, supply chain, HR function, high wallet functions which have high volatility from a labor standpoint, your scale up, scale down in a warehousing scenario. Hiring, say for example, HR teams have to be hiring untiringly today because they will have to be hiring people in bulk in many of these business functions. So how do they kind of even if a hiring, say for example, a form processing takes 2 days time, how can you do it in 2 hours time and make the guy productive the same evening, the day you receive the form? Can you do an employee background verification check and all of that right away? So I think these are the kind of use cases which really takes precedence. So if I were to really put it in a framework sort of a thing, I think the first thing is reduce the pain from the current set of employees because it is here and now. Look at how do you help employees and how do you help organization in looking at things from the perspective of bringing in efficiency to do work without really impacting the labor sort of fluctuations in the market, availability, non-availability, hiring, and so on and so forth. So I think those would be the two critical things that we would look at right now in my mind.
Interesting, Mayank. I
Sure.
think, Vashmi, we have already. So let me break this point into three parts, right? The question three parts. One is, Mayank and I, we already covered the various different categories of organizations and what the needs are in terms of them to be efficient, survive, and save. And Mayank gave a lot of good examples. I will just extend, so I won't quote any further example, but I would like to share some discussions I had with few leaders from Indian corporate as well as from GICs. An interesting observation came about that. So I asked them, do you think or are you using digital workers right now in the BCP situation? Because as we know, the entire world is in BCP mode as we speak. And if yes, is it basically helping in current scenario because you will have to worry less about it? And their view was that Sumit, bots are to be used not in BCP but in BAU. So the idea is to make the organization more resilient. And if it's resilient enough, then you don't have to worry about BCP situation. And this is where I think the organizations will start to think eventually that tomorrow, again, if they face with some sort of a BCP situation, how they are better prepared, and in doing so, how they can utilize the digital worker in more effective manner. So the question is, how come we are not able to utilize it now as we speak, in today's scenario? And the reason is that many of the bots were built in a piecemeal approach, just to automate certain parts of the process. And when you do that, it's like stitching, right? So when you do that, you're unable to harness the full potential of it. So it becomes very important, and I believe after COVID lockdown, it settles down, there will be a change in the mindset where it will be seen, okay, how we can utilize digital worker so that we are sustainable, we are resistant to such sort of situations, and we prepare ourselves well. See, for example, when things get back to normal, we will have to see government grants will get distributed. There will be payment processing that will start. There will be many new operations that will come into play from supply chain perspective, which we have to be prepared well for, right? In that case, we got to make sure that we are thinking ahead and we are responding well because the demand will surge pretty high. So can we use digital worker then? So I think this is where I'm thinking, or what I have understood that industry leaders are thinking now.
Sure. So thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Mayank. And we'll try and stick to the time. So that would be our last question. And so thank you so much for sharing your experiences and bringing out the kind of insights that you did now through so many examples that you shared. And I'm sure it helps the audience make the necessary changes, the tweaks required in their automation strategy as they think through all the steps while they were hearing you. And for the audience, we will share this webinar recording by email. And just after this webinar, there will be a survey form on your screen. So please do share your feedback with us. It really helps us come up with a second program. ITC Infotech will be organizing similar webinars in the coming weeks. So please do follow the social channels and stay in tune there. And thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mashmi.
Thank you, Mashmi. Thank you, everyone, for staying up tonight.